I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who checks the security camera footage in her own house. That's something paranoid people do. Suspicious wives. Women who already know something's wrong but are too scared to admit it. I wasn't one of them. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I'm 66 years old. I've been married for 38 years. You don't stay married that long without trust. Without history. Without believing that the man sleeping next to you isn't hiding something. But that Tuesday afternoon, something felt off. Started small. My husband, Daniel, left the house around noon. Said he was heading to the hardware store. The kitchen sink had been dripping for days. He'd been meaning to fix it. Typical. He kissed my forehead before leaving. Same as always. Won't be long, he said. Normal. Usual. Nothing weird. But he didn't take his phone. Daniel never forgets his phone. Ever. That man could forget his wallet, his keys, even his own anniversary. Yeah, that happened once, but not his phone. I stood in the hallway holding it, staring at the black screen. And that's when I noticed something else. He was dressed different. Not hardware store different. Cologne. The expensive one. The one he only wears at weddings or funerals. My stomach tightened. I tried to shake it off. Stop it, I told myself. You're overthinking. But the house felt quiet. Too quiet. And that silence started getting loud in my head. I walked into the living room. We'd installed security cameras 2 years ago after a break-in down the street. Daniel insisted it was just for safety. I never really used them. Didn't need to. Till now. My hand hovered over the tablet we used to check the feed. I swear I almost walked away. Almost. But something, call it instinct, call it intuition, call it that little voice women are told to ignore, wouldn't let me. So I opened the app. And I rewound the footage. First, everything looked normal. Daniel grabbing his keys. Putting on his jacket. Checking the mirror. Then he paused. Looked around. Not casually. Carefully. Like he was making sure no one was watching. My chest tightened. He walked toward the front door, then stopped. Turned around. And walked into the kitchen. Out of camera view. The audio didn't record, just video. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Then 2. He reappeared. But he wasn't alone. A woman stepped into frame behind him. Young. Blonde. Way too young. My throat went dry. She wasn't someone I recognized. Not a neighbor. Not a family friend. And the way she stood close to him. That wasn't accidental. That wasn't friendly. That wasn't normal. Daniel looked nervous. He didn't. She looked comfortable. Like she'd been here before. Froze. My fingers went numb on the tablet screen. He wasn't at the hardware store. He was in my kitchen. With another woman. And then, she reached out. Touched his chest. Slowly. Intentionally. And he didn't move her hand away. That was the moment. The exact second something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. Like glass under pressure. Kept watching. 'Cause once you start, you can't stop. And what I saw next. I wish I hadn't. I told myself maybe I was misunderstanding what I was seeing. Maybe she was a contractor. Maybe she was a real estate agent. Maybe there was some logical explanation. But deep down, he knew. Women know. He looked at her the way he used to look at me 20 years ago. Careful. Focused. Like the rest of the world didn't exist. The footage showed them standing in the kitchen. She laughed at something he said. I couldn't hear it, but I could see his shoulders relax. Relax. That hit me harder than anything else. He didn't look stressed. He didn't look guilty. He looked happy. And that's what shattered me. Because lately, he hadn't looked happy with me. She moved closer. Too close. Her hand slid from his chest down to his arm. Low. Comfortable. This wasn't their first time. I'd bet my life on it. Daniel glanced toward the hallway, toward our bedroom. Then he said something. He smirked. And they walked out of frame together. Toward the bedroom. My bedroom. The one we'd shared for almost 4 decades. The one where we raised our kids. The one where we cried after losing his mother. The one where we promised each other forever. I couldn't breathe. I fast-forwarded. 10 minutes. 20. 30. They didn't come back into view. I dropped the tablet. It hit the couch, but the sound still made me jump. My hands were shaking so bad I had to sit down. This couldn't be my life. This stuff happens to other women. You see it on TV. You read about it online. You whisper about it with your friends over coffee. But not me. Not after 38 years. Not after everything. I checked the timestamp. They were still in the bedroom. 42 minutes. Felt sick. Physically sick. Like someone had poured ice water down my spine. That was when something inside me shifted. I stopped crying. Stopped shaking. Stopped hoping I was wrong. Instead I got calm. Carry calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. I rewound again. This time I paid attention to details. She carried a small black purse. Designer. Expensive. Definitely not the type of woman who just stopped by. Daniel locked the front door after she came in. Locked it. Like he didn't want anyone walking in. Like he didn't want me walking in. But here's the part that really got me. Before they disappeared down the hallway, she turned slightly toward the camera. And she smiled. Not a sweet smile. Not nervous. It was a knowing smile. Like she was aware. Like she knew she didn't belong there. Like she was daring me to find out. An hour later, Daniel reappeared alone. His shirt slightly wrinkled. Hair messed up. He looked flushed. He walked her to the door. She kissed him. Not on the cheek. On the lips. Quick. Confident. And then she left. Daniel stood there for a second. Ran his hand through his hair. And then he did something that made my stomach twist. He adjusted the camera angle. Just slightly. Like he didn't want it pointing toward the hallway anymore. Like he knew. Like he had just realized something. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him right away. No screaming. No throwing things. No dramatic movie scene. I was going to be smart. If he thought I didn't know. But let him think that. Because if there's one thing I've learned after 66 years on this earth, it's that sometimes the quiet ones, they're the most dangerous. And Daniel had no idea. I just seen everything. By the time Daniel came back that afternoon, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. I heard his truck pull into the driveway. My heart started pounding so loud I thought he'd hear it through the walls. The front door opened. "Hey babe," he called out casually. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just betrayed nearly 4 decades of marriage. I didn't answer right away. I needed my voice steady. A step. Then he appeared in the kitchen doorway. Smiling. Holding a small paper bag. "Got the part one needed," he said. "Sink should be good by tonight." I looked at him. Really looked at him. Same face I'd woken up next to for years. Same hands that held mine at our daughter's graduation. Same man who once promised, "It's you and me till the end." And now. He felt like a stranger wearing my husband's skin. "You okay?" he asked. I forced a small smile. "Yeah. Just tired." He leaned down and kissed the top of my head. The same way he did before leaving earlier. Only now it made my stomach turn. He smelled like cologne. That expensive one. Ugh. So he didn't even bother to wash it off. Bold. Or careless. Maybe both. He went into the kitchen and turned on the faucet. "See. Dripping stopped," he said proudly. He nodded. Inside I wanted to scream. Instead I asked casually. "Hardware store busy?" He didn't hesitate. "Yeah, kinda. Had to wait for some guy to finish up ahead of me." Smooth. Practice. I watched his face closely. No stutter. No guilt. No flicker of shame. That scared me more than anything. We ate dinner like normal. Watched TV like normal. He even laughed at one of those dumb sitcom jokes he always finds hilarious. And I sat there thinking, how long? How long has this been going on? Was this the first time? Or just the first time I caught him? Later that night he went to take a shower. The water started running. And I felt it again. That shift inside me. Not sadness. Not panic. Something colder. I walked quietly to the bedroom. Opened his nightstand drawer. His phone wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. Because he'd left it home earlier. Which meant, if there was anything on it, it was probably still there. Hidden. Unprepared. I picked it up from the dresser where he'd placed it before dinner. My hands weren't shaking this time. I unlocked it. We've always known each other's passwords. Or at least, thought we did. The screen opened. No lock changes. No panic deletes. He really didn't think I'd look. Big mistake. I opened his messages. Scrolled. And there it was. A contact saved as Megan Plumbing. Plumbing. The irony almost made me laugh. Their last text from earlier that day. Her. Same time next week. Him. Yeah. She won't be home. Her. Can't wait. Him. Me neither. My vision blurred. Same time next week. So this wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This was a routine. Schedule. A whole second life happening inside my own house. The shower turned off. I quickly locked the phone and placed it back exactly where it had been. My heart was racing again, but not from shock. From clarity. I knew now. And once you know, you can't unknow it. He walked out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist. Heading to bed, he asked. I smiled softly. Yeah, I said. But inside, I was already planning my next move. Because Daniel thought he was being slick. Thought he had control. What he didn't realize. He just started a game he wasn't prepared to finish. And I had no intention of losing. I didn't sleep that night. Daniel did. Of course he did. He lay beside me, breathing slow and steady like a man with nothing to hide. One arm stretched across the bed, almost touching me. Almost. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The footage. A kiss. A text. Same time next week. That line kept looping in my mind like a broken record. Same time next week. So they had a schedule. System. My house had turned into their meeting spot. And I had been walking around in it like a clueless extra in my own marriage. Not anymore. By morning I wasn't heartbroken. I was focused. There's something people don't talk about enough. When betrayal hits a certain level, the tears dry up. What's left is calculation. Daniel kissed me goodbye before leaving for work. Love you, he said casually. I looked him straight in the eyes. Love you too. And for the first time in 38 years. I didn't mean it. The moment he left, I grabbed the tablet again. I reviewed older footage. Scrolled back days. Then weeks. And there she was. 3 times in the last month. Always midday. Always when I had my book club or grocery run. Always when he had errands. The pattern was so clean it almost impressed me. Almost. She parked 2 houses down. Walked up casually. No rush. Like she owned the place. I watched one clip where she laughed and tossed her hair back in my kitchen like it was hers. That did something to me. Something primal. I zoomed in on her face. Clear enough. Blonde. Early 30s maybe. Confident. Definitely not someone who, accidentally, ended up in a 66-year-old married man's bedroom. She knew. She knew exactly what she was doing. And so did he. Then I noticed something else. In one of the older clips, before they walked to the bedroom, Daniel handed her something. Folded bills. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just an affair. This was transactional. Or at least partially. Was he paying her? Helping her? Supporting her? What the hell was this? Because emotional betrayal is one thing. Financial betrayal. That's war. I stood up and walked straight to the filing cabinet. Opened our bank statements. Started checking transfers. First glance, nothing obvious. But then I saw it. Cash withdrawals. Every Tuesday. Same amount. $600. My hands went cold. $600 a week. For how long? I checked further back. 3 months. That's over $7 grand. $7,000 of our retirement money. And I hadn't even noticed. That was the moment the heartbreak officially turned into anger. Not loud anger. Not screaming anger. Cold anger. Controlled anger. The kind that plans. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't confront him the next day either. Instead, I did something smarter. I called my friend Linda. Linda's been divorced twice. She doesn't cry over men. She collects evidence. Don't say a word yet, she told me after I explained everything. Let him think he's winning. I want proof, I said. You already have proof. No, I replied quietly. I want undeniable proof. There's a difference. The following Tuesday I cancelled book club. Didn't tell Daniel. Instead, I left the house at the usual time. Drove around the block. Parked down the street. And waited. My heart pounded like it did the first time I saw the footage. 20 minutes later. A white sedan pulled up 2 houses down. Blonde. Same purse. Same walk. He checked her phone. Then walked toward my house. Confident. Relaxed. Like she'd done this 100 times. I waited exactly 5 minutes after she went inside. Then I walked to my front door. Unlocked it quietly. And stepped inside my own house. I could hear them laughing from the hallway. Laughing. Like this was cute. Like this was harmless. Like I wasn't real. I walked down the hallway slowly. Every step steady. Every breath controlled. And just before I reached the bedroom door, I heard her say something that made my entire body go still. So, when are you finally going to tell her? Silence. Then Daniel's voice. Soon. I just need the right time. My vision went red. Tell her. Tell me what? What exactly was he planning? Divorce. Leaving. Starting over. After 38 years. After everything. I didn't burst in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I stepped back. Quietly. And I left the house. Because now this wasn't just about cheating. This was about replacement. And if Daniel thought he was about to rewrite our story without me knowing, he had no idea who he was married to. That night when he came home, he acted normal again. But this time, I saw it. Distance. The calculation in his eyes. He thought he was preparing for a future without me. What he didn't know, I was preparing too. And I was 3 steps ahead. That night I watched Daniel differently. Not as a wife. Not as a woman in love. But as someone studying a stranger. He sat in his recliner like always. Watched the news. Complained about gas prices. Asked me what I wanted for dinner tomorrow. Normal husband stuff. Except nothing was normal anymore. Because now I knew 2 things. He was cheating. He was planning something. And that second one. That scared me more. The next morning I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I scheduled an appointment. With a lawyer. I didn't tell Linda yet. Didn't tell anyone. I just needed information. When you've been married almost 4 decades, your lives aren't just emotionally connected. They're legally tied together. Retirement accounts. Property. Insurance. If Daniel was thinking about walking away, I needed to know exactly where I stood. The lawyer's office smelled like coffee and old paper. The woman across from me was probably in her early 50s. Sharp eyes. Innocent tone. How long have you been married? She asked. 38 years. She gave me that look. The one that says, this won't be simple. Any prenup. No. She nodded slowly. And you suspect infidelity. I hesitated. I have proof. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Good, she said. Proof matters. I didn't feel good. Felt tired. She walked me through numbers. If he left. If I left. If we sold the house. If he tried to hide assets. Turns out, after this long, half is half. Retirement included. Property included. And if he's been pulling large cash withdrawals without disclosure, that matters too. When I left that office, something inside me steadied. For the first time since seeing the footage, I didn't feel powerless. But the story wasn't done unraveling. Not even close. Because that evening I did something I probably should have done sooner. I looked her up. Megan, plumbing. That wasn't her real job. That much was obvious. I searched his phone number in reverse. Nothing. Then I searched her face. Screenshot from the camera footage. Uploaded it into an image search. And there she was. Not a plumber. Not even close. She worked at a local fitness studio. Yoga instructor. 32 years old. Divorced. And based on her social media. Very comfortable around older men. There were pictures. Not direct proof, but enough to paint a pattern. Luxury dinners. Trip. None of which matched a yoga instructor salary. My stomach dropped. Daniel wasn't just cheating. He was funding her lifestyle. I went back to the bank records. The $600 withdrawals weren't the only thing. There were hotel charges. Small jewelry store purchases. Spa gift card. All spaced out just enough to avoid suspicion. Except I wasn't blind anymore. Then I found something that made my heart stop. A transfer request. Drafted. Not yet processed. From our joint savings. To a separate account. New account. Under Daniel's name only. The amount. $48,000. Almost half our savings. And the scheduled transfer date. Next Friday. My hands went ice cold. He wasn't just planning an affair. He was planning an exit. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time that night. $48,000. That's not impulsive. That's not emotional. That's strategic. He was preparing to leave. And judging by what I overheard Tuesday, he was just waiting for the right time. Probably after securing everything. After making sure he'd land comfortably. With her. When he came home that evening, he looked lighter. Almost excited. "Everything okay?" Asked casually. "Yeah," he said. "Actually, I've been thinking." My pulse spiked. "About what?" He hesitated. Then smiled. "About making some changes. You know. While we're still young enough to enjoy life." Young enough. At 66. Interesting choice of words. "What kind of changes?" Asked. He shrugged. "Just simplifying. Maybe downsizing. Maybe traveling more." Lies layered in half-truths. He wasn't simplifying. He was preparing to replace. That night as he slept, I made my decision. I wasn't going to wait for him to pull the trigger. I wasn't going to let him drain our savings. I wasn't going to let him control the narrative. If he wanted to rewrite our ending, fine. But I was picking the final chapter. The next morning before he woke up, I logged into our joint account. And I moved the money first. Not illegally. Not secretly. Just into a secure holding account under both our names, but requiring dual authorization for withdrawal. He couldn't touch it without me. Petty. Maybe. Smart. Absolutely. Then I printed everything. Bank statements. Camera screenshots. Text messages. I put them neatly into a folder. Labeled it. And placed it on the dining table. Right where he'd see it when he came home. 'Cause sometimes, the most powerful confrontation is the quiet one. Daniel walked in at 5:42 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was watching the clock. Not nervously. Not anxiously. Just ready. The folder was sitting in the center of the dining table. Neat. Clean. Impossible to miss. He stepped inside, loosened his tie and called out, "I'm home." I stayed in the kitchen. "Hey," I replied calmly. He walked toward the dining area and then I heard it. Pause. Not a loud reaction. Just silence. The kind of silence that stretches too long. I walked out slowly. He was standing over the folder. Didn't touch it yet. Just staring. "What's this?" he asked casually. Too casually. "You should open it," I said. He flipped it open. First page. Bank withdrawals. Second page. Screenshots from the security footage. Third page. Printed text messages. His face didn't turn red. Didn't go pale. It went blank. Like someone had pulled the plug on his expression. He looked up at me. "How long?" he asked. I almost laughed. "How long what? How long have you known?" Long enough. He closed the folder slowly. Listen, he started. That word. Listen. As if I'd been the one not paying attention. You don't understand the whole situation. Now it was complicated. Enlighten me, I said calmly. He ran his hand through his hair. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Classic. It wasn't supposed to happen. It didn't mean anything. Just happened. Men always think betrayal is some kind of accident. Like tripping over a curb. How long? I asked quietly. He hesitated. That's not important. It's the only thing that's important. He looked down. About 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. While we ate dinner together. While we celebrated our anniversary. While we talked about retirement plans. 6 months. And the money. Yes. He stiffened slightly. It's not what you think. $48,000 isn't what I think. He exhaled. I was going to tell you. When? After it cleared. Silence. That told me everything. He finally sat down. You've been distant for years, he said quietly. There it was. The justification. This didn't just happen out of nowhere. I stared at him. So your solution was to sleep with a 32-year-old yoga instructor in our bedroom? His jaw tightened. You looked her up. Obviously. He didn't deny it. Didn't argue. Didn't defend her. And that was interesting. She makes me feel alive, he admitted. Alive. Like I'd been killing him slowly. Like 38 years of loyalty was some kind of burden. And I don't. Asked softly. He didn't answer. That hurt more than anything else. Then I said the one thing he didn't expect. The money's gone. His head snapped up. What? I moved it. Into a protected account. You can't transfer it. His entire posture changed. The calm disappeared. You had no right. No right. I repeated slowly. You were about to drain half our savings. I was protecting myself. From what? Asked. Your wife. Silence again. But this time it wasn't confident. It was unsettled. Then I dropped the final piece. I heard you on Tuesday. His eyes flickered. Heard what? When she asked when you were going to tell me. His shoulders stiffened. And when you said soon. That hit him. 'Cause now he knew. I hadn't just seen. I'd listened. He leaned back in the chair. I was going to ask for a divorce, he said finally. There it was. No sugarcoating. No pretending. Just blunt truth. I nodded slowly. After moving the money. He didn't answer. Which meant yes. I didn't want this to get ugly, he said. I almost smiled. Daniel, I said quietly. You brought another woman into my house. Into my bed. And you tried to move our life savings behind my back. Pause. It's already ugly. For the first time that evening he looked unsure. Not guilty. Not remorseful. Just unsure. As if this confrontation wasn't going the way he rehearsed it in his head. You're overreacting, he muttered. That was it. That was the moment something inside me fully detached. Overreacting. After 6 months. After thousands of dollars. After planning to leave me. Overreacting. I stood up slowly. No, I said calmly. I'm responding. And then I walked to the hallway closet. Pulled out a suitcase. And placed it near the front door. Not mine. He stared at it. You're kicking me out. I'm giving you a head start. He shook his head in disbelief. This is my house. Our house, I corrected. Legally. He looked like he wanted to argue. But the folder on the table reminded him he didn't have the upper hand anymore. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. No, I replied. You made yours 6 months ago. He didn't pack that night. He slept in the guest room. Or at least he pretended to sleep. I didn't check. 'Cause for the first time in weeks. Felt clear. Not broken. Not hysterical. Clear. But the story wasn't over. Because the next morning, Megan showed up at my front door. And she wasn't smiling anymore. I wasn't expecting her. That's the honest truth. After everything that went down the night before, I figured Daniel would run straight to her. Or she'd wait for him to update her. I didn't think she'd show up at my house. But at 9:17 a.m., there was a knock on the front door. Not hesitant, not soft, confident. I knew before I even looked. Still, I checked the camera feed from my phone. Blonde hair, black sunglasses, arms crossed. Megan, course. I took a slow breath and opened the door. She pulled off her sunglasses like this was some kind of movie scene. "You're his wife," she said. Not a question, a statement. "And you're the yoga instructor," I replied calmly. Her jaw tightened slightly, so she knew I knew. "But I think we need to talk," she said. I almost laughed. "You and I?" "Yes." Bold. I stepped aside. 5 minutes, I said. "That's all you get." She walked in like she'd been there before. Which technically she had. That thought still burned. We sat at the dining table. The same table where I'd left the folder for Daniel. She looked younger up close. Not just in age, but in energy. Confident, bullish, calculated. "I didn't know he was planning to leave you like this," she said quickly. "Interesting." "Like what?" "Like, financially." So that's what this was about. Not love. Not guilt. Money. "You thought he was just going to magically show up single?" Yes. She shifted in her seat. "He said you two were basically roommates." Classic line. Every affair apparently starts with the marriage being over already. "Did he tell you we celebrated our anniversary 2 months ago?" Yes. She didn't respond. "Did he tell you he was still sleeping in our bed every night?" Her silence stretched. So he'd painted a very convenient picture. "I'm not here to fight," she said finally. "I just need to know what's happening." Leaned back. "You need to know." "Yes. Let me make this simple," I said calmly. "He's not moving any money. He's not draining our accounts. And he's not walking away clean." Her eyes flickered. That's what she cared about. Security, stability, funding. "He said you were controlling," she said quietly. I smiled slightly. Of course he did. Because when men cheat, they don't tell the other woman the truth. They tell her a story where they're the victim. Then she said something that made me study her differently. "He told me he was already separated." Now that was new. Separated. I repeated. "Yes. That you were just living in the same house for convenience." I stared at her. For a second I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered her laughing in my hallway. Her kissing him at my door. Her asking when he'd finally tell her. She wasn't innocent. She just wasn't fully informed. "You've been here multiple times," I said. She didn't deny it. "You knew he was married." "Yes." "You knew he lived here." "Yes." "And you still walked into my bedroom." Her jaw tightened again. "That's between me and him." "No," I said softly. "It's between all three of us." There was a moment of silence. Heavy. Then she asked the question I didn't expect. "Did he tell you about Florida?" My pulse shifted. "Florida?" She blinked. "He said you two were selling the house and moving. That's why he was transferring money." I felt something click into place. Florida. We talked about it years ago. Retirement dreams. Beach house. But we hadn't seriously planned anything. Not recently. So that's what he told her. That the money transfer was mutual. That I was part of it. The layers of lies were stacking high. "He was moving to Florida," I said slowly. "Just not with me." Her face changed. Not dramatically. Just slightly. Uncertainty creeping in. "I didn't know about the transfer until yesterday," she said quietly. That I believed. Because if she had known, she wouldn't be here asking questions. She'd be packing. "Let me ask you something," I said calmly. She looked up. "If he lies to his wife of 38 years, what makes you think he wouldn't lie to you?" That hit. She didn't respond. Because there wasn't a good response. Footsteps behind us. "Daniel." He'd been listening from the hallway. Of course he had. He stepped into the room. And for the first time since this whole thing started, he looked nervous. Not defensive. Not confident. Nervous. 'Cause now, the two versions of his life were sitting at the same table. And neither one looked happy. "Megan, I told you not to come here," he said sharply. She stood up. "You said you were separated." "I am." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, are we?" He ignored me. "She's twisting things," he said to Megan. That was almost funny. Twisting. As if screenshots and bank records were fiction. "Are you moving to Florida?" Megan asked him directly. He hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. Because if the plan was solid, if the future was real, he wouldn't pause. We were discussing options," he said carefully. Interesting word choice. Megan looked between us, then back at him. "You told me it was already decided." Silence. Uncomfortable. He'd been selling her a future, and selling me stability, and now, both were collapsing. "You're making this dramatic," he muttered. I stood up slowly. "No," I said calmly. "You did that when you tried to live two separate lives in the same house." Megan grabbed her purse. She looked at him differently now. Less certain. Less impressed. "I need time," she said quietly. Then she walked toward the door. He followed her. Of course he did. Called her name softly. Like she was the priority. Like I wasn't standing right there. The front door closed. And for a long moment, it was just me and Daniel again. Except this time, he didn't look like a man in control. He looked like someone who just realized he might lose everything. And that's when I said the one thing he truly didn't expect. "I've already filed." His head snapped toward me. "You what?" I held his gaze. "I'm done waiting." "You filed?" Daniel repeated like he hadn't heard me right. "Yes." My voice didn't shake. It surprised even me how steady I sounded. "You're bluffing," he said. "I'm not." He stared at me, searching my face for hesitation. There wasn't any. "You wouldn't do that without talking to me." "I tried talking to you," I said calmly. "For years." That landed. Because he knew it was true. He ran both hands through his hair. "This is insane," he muttered. "We can fix this." That word again. Like it was a leaky faucet. Not 6 months of lying. Not thousands of dollars moved around in secret. Not planning a whole new life behind my back. "Are you ending it with her?" Asked directly. He hesitated. That hesitation was loud. "I just need time," he said. "Men always want time when they're losing control." "You've had 6 months," I replied. "That was your time." He paced the kitchen like he used to when bills stressed him out. Except this wasn't about bills. This was about consequences. "You don't understand," he said finally. "Then help me understand." He stopped. "She makes me feel wanted." There it was again. Wanted. Like I hadn't wanted him. Like I hadn't built a life around him. Like I hadn't supported every risk he ever took. "You're not unhappy because of me," I said quietly. "You're unhappy because you're scared of getting older." That hit harder than anything else I'd said. His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" "Yes." "You're 66. Retirement is around the corner. Your body's changing. Your friends are talking about health issues. And instead of facing that, you found someone who makes you feel 40 again." Silence. He didn't deny it. Because deep down, he knew. "You think this is about love?" Continued. "It is." "Then why were you moving money in secret?" He didn't answer. Because love doesn't require hidden bank transfers. His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it. "Megan." "Course." He didn't answer. For the first time since this started. He let it ring. That told me something. Not that he chose me. But that he realized the situation was unstable. And unstable doesn't feel romantic anymore. That night, he didn't sleep in the guest room. He didn't sleep in our bed either. He slept on the couch, like a man suspended between two lives. The next morning something unexpected happened. Megan posted a photo, public, on social media. Picture of her at a cafe. Caption: "Never build your future on someone else's lies." No tag. But everyone who needed to know. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I closed the app. 'Cause for the first time, this wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. Daniel left early that morning. Didn't say where he was going. Didn't kiss my forehead. Didn't say, "Love you." Just grabbed his keys and walked out. And I realized something. I wasn't sad. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't begging. Felt lighter. Around noon my phone rang. My lawyer. "The papers were served this morning," she said. "So he knows." Yes. How did he take it? Not well. I almost smiled. But by late afternoon Daniel came home. But he didn't look angry. He looked tired. Older. Like the fantasy had aged him overnight. "She's not answering my calls," he said quietly. I didn't respond. "She thinks I lied about everything." "You did," I said calmly. He exhaled heavily. "She thinks I was using her." "Weren't you?" I didn't say it out loud. Didn't need to. "She says she doesn't want drama," he added. Drama. Funny how people call consequences drama. "So what now?" he asked finally. That question told me everything. He wasn't asking as a husband. He was asking as a man who realized his backup plan just evaporated. Now he was looking around for stability again. For safety. For the familiar. For me. "What now?" I repeated softly. "Yes." I looked at him carefully. Really looked. Not the man from 38 years ago. Not the father of my children. Not the version I loved. Just the man standing in front of me. Man who gambled. And lost. "What now?" I said slowly. "Is we let the lawyers handle it." His face fell. "You're serious?" I've never been more serious in my life. For the first time since this started, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing Megan. Fear of losing everything. The house. The money. The routine. The comfort. The woman who had always been there. And suddenly, he realized something. The woman he thought would never leave. Already had. Emotionally. Mentally. And legally. But what he didn't know yet was that the biggest twist still hadn't surfaced. Because later that evening, I received a message from Megan. And it changed everything. The message came at 7:43 p.m. Unknown number. 3 dots. Then a photo. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. It was a screenshot. A bank transfer confirmation. $12,000. From Daniel. To Megan. Date. 2 weeks ago. My breath slowed. Not faster. Slower. Cold. Below the screenshot she typed. "He told me this was for our condo deposit." Condo. So Florida wasn't just talk. It was already in motion. Another message followed. "He said you agreed to sell the house." I almost laughed. Agreed. That word again. Men love to use shared language for solo decisions. I didn't respond immediately. I walked into the living room where Daniel was sitting. TV on. Volume low. Mind somewhere else. "You transferred $12,000 2 weeks ago," I said calmly. His head snapped toward me. "What?" "Don't," I replied softly. "Just don't." His face changed. That tiny flicker of being caught again. "It was an investment," he said. "In what?" "Her." He looked away. Silence. Answer enough. My phone buzzed again. "Megan." "He also told me you couldn't have children." That line made me freeze. Children. At 66. What kind of story was he selling her? I stared at the screen, then walked back into the room. "What exactly have you been telling her?" I asked quietly. He looked confused. "About what?" "About me." He hesitated. That hesitation again. Dangerous. "I may have said we weren't close anymore." "That's not what I asked." I stepped closer. She thinks I can't have children. His eyes widened slightly. I never said that. You said something. He rubbed his forehead. She wanted kids, he muttered. And there it was. The real fantasy. Not just youth. Not just feeling alive. Rewriting biology. Rewriting time. Rewriting his own aging. You're 66, I said calmly. What exactly was the long-term plan? He didn't answer. Because there wasn't one. Just ego. Impulse. And a midlife crisis that arrived 20 years late. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Megan. This time just one sentence. I'm pregnant. Everything inside me went still. Not explosive. Not dramatic. I read it twice. Then 3 times. Pregnant. 32. By my husband. I looked up at Daniel. She says she's pregnant. His face drained instantly. What? She says she's pregnant. He stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly. That's not possible. I held his gaze. You were pretty confident about impossibilities 6 months ago too. He paced the room. No, that doesn't make sense. Why not? I asked quietly. You've been sleeping with her. He ran his hands through his hair again. She was on birth control. I almost smiled at the irony. You trusted her. Interesting. Another message. He promised me a family. That one hit differently. Because now it wasn't just betrayal. It was delusion. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a second life based on promises he had no stability to fulfill. He looked at me like I was supposed to fix this. Like I'd always fix things. Bills. Kids' problems. Family drama. His stress. But not this. Not anymore. What are you going to do? I asked calmly. I don't even know if it's mine, he snapped. There it was. The first instinct. Doubt her. Shift blame. Avoid responsibility. She seems pretty sure, I replied. He sank back into the chair. Head in his hands. For the first time since this started. He looked small. Not powerful. Not romantic. My phone buzzed again. Final message. I'm keeping it. I stared at those 3 words. Keeping it. Which meant this wasn't temporary. This wasn't a fling. This was permanent. Child. At 66. After 38 years of marriage. After planning retirement. After planning Florida. I walked to the window. Looked outside. The same yard we'd raised our children in. And suddenly I realized something. This wasn't my humiliation. This wasn't my failure. This was his reckoning. Are you staying with her? I asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. And that silence told me everything. Because now it wasn't about feeling young. Or feeling wanted. Now it was about responsibility. And responsibility doesn't feel exciting. Feels heavy. He finally spoke. I don't know. And that was the moment I knew. He wasn't in control. He never had been. He was just chasing ego. And now, reality was knocking. Loud. I looked at him one last time that night. Not as a wife. Not as a victim. Just as a woman who survived something she didn't see coming. You better figure it out, I said calmly. Because I already have. But what Daniel didn't know yet was that Megan wasn't the only one hiding something. And the truth about that pregnancy was far more complicated than any of us expected. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken, but because I was thinking. Pregnant. 32. By a 66-year-old man who thought cologne and secret bank transfers could rewrite reality. Something about it didn't sit right. Not emotionally. Logically. The next morning Daniel looked wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes. Shoulders slumped. Phone glued to his hand. She won't answer, he muttered. She texted me, I replied calmly. His head lifted instantly. What did she say? She's keeping it. He swallowed. Hard. Then his phone buzzed. He looked down. Name. This time he answered. I didn't leave the room. Didn't need to. His voice was tense. What do you mean you're sure? No, I'm not saying that. Longer pause. What doctor? He went quiet, listening. His face shifted. Confusion, then disbelief, then something else. Fear. He slowly lowered the phone. What? Asked evenly. She said she found out 3 weeks ago. And? He blinked at me. But 3 weeks ago, I was in Chicago. Business trip. 4 days. I remembered it clearly. Because that was the week our son had visited. Daniel had been out of town. Are you sure? Yes. He nodded slowly. Positive. A strange silence filled the room. Not relief. Not victory. Just a recalibration. So, I said carefully, either the timeline's off, or... He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Because suddenly the fantasy was unraveling. Not just for me. For him. His phone buzzed again. He looked at the message and froze. What now? Asked. He hesitated, then handed me the phone. It was a screenshot. Positive pregnancy test. Timestamp. 3 weeks ago. The same week he'd been out of state. I looked up at him. Did you ask her? He nodded slowly. She said dates don't matter. Dates don't matter. That's convenient. Another message came in. This time longer. I read it over his shoulder. You promised you'd take care of me no matter what. Don't start acting different now. That line shifted everything. Because that wasn't excitement. That was pressure. She told me she wasn't seeing anyone else, he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. And you believed that? He didn't respond. Because now he was standing exactly where I had been weeks ago, watching the truth crack open in real time. You gave her money, I said quietly. Yeah. You promised her Florida. Yeah. You told her you were separated. Silence. You told her you were going to leave me. Long pause. Yeah. And now she's pregnant. Conveniently during the week you were gone. The words hung there. Heavy. He sank into the chair again. You think she's lying. I think, I said carefully, that people who build relationships on lies don't usually tell the truth. That hit hard. Because that applied to both of them. His phone buzzed again. Another message. If you try to back out, I'll make this public. Public. There it was. Not romance. Not love. Leverage. He looked at me like he'd just woken up from a dream. I think she trapped me, he whispered. I stared at him. And for the first time since this all began, I almost laughed. Trapped. You mean like bringing someone into your wife's bedroom? Like secretly moving retirement money? Like promising a future you hadn't secured? Trapped. You weren't trapped, I said calmly. You were reckless. He didn't argue. Because deep down, he knew. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice note. He hesitated before playing it. Megan's voice filled the room. But sharp underneath. You can't just walk away now, Daniel. You said we were building something real. Don't make me look stupid. Real. That word again. Everyone thought this was real. Except the foundation was nothing but deception. He ended the recording. Sat there in silence. The fantasy was dissolving. And reality. Reality was brutal. Are you going to take a paternity test? Asked evenly. He looked at me like he hadn't considered that yet. I guess. You guess. He rubbed his temples. I don't know what's real anymore. That was the most honest thing he'd said in weeks. And in that moment, I realized something unexpected. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't even hurt the same way. I was watching a man deal with consequences. And for the first time, they weren't mine. They were his. But the biggest twist came an hour later, when Megan sent me a direct message. Not him. Me. And what she said next changed everything. The message didn't go to Daniel. Came to me. Direct. Private. Intentional. We need to talk. Woman to woman. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Daniel was pacing in the living room, spiraling in his own mess. But this was different. She didn't want him. She wanted me. I stepped outside onto the back patio and called her. She answered on the second ring. No greeting. No small talk. "You know he lied to both of us," she said immediately. I leaned back in the chair. I'm starting to see that pattern. Silence for a few seconds. Then she exhaled sharply. "I'm not pregnant." Just like that. No drama. No build-up. Just a confession. I didn't react right away. "Say that again," I said calmly. "I'm not pregnant." The words landed strangely. Not relief. Not victory. Just confirmation of something I already suspected. "Then what was all of that?" I asked. "The test picture," she said. "It was old." "Old?" "Yes." "How old?" She hesitated. 2 years. My grip tightened on the phone. 2 years ago. Before Daniel. Before any of this. "So you lied?" "Yes." The honesty surprised me more than the lie. "Why?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer immediately. Because the real reason always takes a second to admit. "Because he started pulling away," she said finally. There it was. Not love. Not motherhood. Fear. "He said you found out," she continued. "And suddenly he wasn't talking about Florida anymore. He wasn't sending money the same way. He got distant." So she panicked. And panic makes people desperate. "You thought a pregnancy would lock him in," I said. She didn't deny it. "He promised me things," she said softly. "He said he was miserable. That he felt stuck. That I was his future." Future. Such a powerful word. Easy to say. Expensive to believe. "And when he stopped promising?" Yes. I didn't want to lose everything. Everything. She was 32. Young. Still building her life. But she had attached her stability to a man already living one. And when that foundation cracked, she tried to secure it. With a lie. "You threatened to go public," I said. "Yes." "You threatened him." "Yes." "And you messaged me." "Yes." "Why?" There was a long pause. Longer than the others. "Because I realized he lied about you too." That caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "He told me you were cold. That you didn't care anymore. That you were practically done." I let out a slow breath. Men always rewrite history to justify their present. "And?" Yes. "I saw the way you handled everything," she said quietly. "You're not cold. You're calm." That was interesting. Not praise. Recognition. "So what now?" Yes. "I'm done," she said. "Done with what?" "With him." Her voice didn't shake. No tears. Just clarity. "He doesn't know how to tell the truth. Not to you. Not to me." That was the most accurate statement anyone had made in weeks. "Are you going to tell him?" Yes. "About the pregnancy?" "Yes." "Yes." "And the rest?" Another pause. "I already did." My pulse shifted. "What do you mean?" "I told him I knew he wasn't in Chicago alone." The air went still around me. "What?" "I saw hotel charges. I saw messages." "Messages? What messages?" Asked carefully. "He wasn't just with me." Everything inside me went quiet. Not explosive. Not chaotic. Quiet. "You're saying?" I started. "Yes," she interrupted. "There were others." Plural. Others. "How many?" Asked. "I don't know." Her voice was steady now. Clear. "He told me I was the only one. But I found things. Different names. Different numbers. Late-night calls." I closed my eyes for a second. So the betrayal wasn't a triangle. It was a pattern. "You deserve to know," she said softly. Interesting. The woman who walked into my house now saying I deserved truth. Life has a twisted sense of humor. "Thank you for telling me," I said. And I meant it. Not because she was innocent, but because she was honest now. And honesty changes power. When I walked back inside, Daniel was sitting on the couch. Phone in his hand. Face pale. "She told me," he said quietly. She told me to, I replied. He looked up. She said she wasn't pregnant. I know. He swallowed. She said she overreacted. I nodded slowly. She also said you weren't in Chicago alone. His face went completely still. That silence. That was the loudest one yet. What is she talking about? I asked calmly. He didn't answer. Didn't deny. Didn't defend. Just stared. And in that moment, he knew. This wasn't a midlife crisis. This wasn't one mistake. This was a lifestyle. How many? I asked softly. He exhaled slowly. I don't know. That was the wrong answer. Because if you don't know, that means it wasn't just one. The house felt different now. Not broken. Not dramatic. Just finished. Like the final page of a book you already know the ending to. I'm not angry anymore, I said quietly. He looked confused. I'm disappointed. That hit harder than yelling ever could. Because anger still means attachment. Disappointment. That's detachment. He opened his mouth like he was about to argue, then closed it. Because what argument was left? The fantasy collapsed. The pregnancy lie exposed. The Florida dream gone. And now, the truth wasn't flattering. It was repetitive. You didn't just cheat, I said calmly. You escaped. And escapes always end. He looked smaller than ever. Not powerful. Not desirable. Just a man who outran his own reality until it caught him. And as I stood there, I realized something unexpected. This wasn't my humiliation. It wasn't my loss. It wasn't even my story anymore. It was my freedom. But the final chapter still hadn't been written, because there was one last decision left. And this time, it was entirely mine. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't demand explanations. Because by that point I didn't need them. When the smoke clears, the truth doesn't shout. Just stands there. Obvious. Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd celebrated anniversaries. Where we'd planned vacations. Where we'd talked about retirement. Now it felt like a negotiation room. Not a marriage. I messed up, he said quietly. That was new. No excuses. No deflecting. Just those 3 words. But sometimes I messed up is just a softer version of I got caught. You didn't mess up, I replied evenly. You made choices. There's a difference. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A choice is building a second life while sleeping next to your wife. He looked exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally cornered. What do you want to do? He asked. For weeks, everything had revolved around what he wanted. His excitement. His fantasy. His crisis. Now the question had finally shifted. What did I want? I stood up slowly and walked toward the bedroom. Not dramatically. Just intentionally. He followed me halfway down the hall. Where are you going? To pack. The word landed heavy. You're leaving, he asked. I turned around calmly. No. That pause hit him harder than if I had screamed. You are. Silence. Unavoidable. This is my house too, he said weakly. Yes, I agreed. But I'm not the one who walked out of it emotionally months ago. He had already left. He just hadn't taken his clothes yet. I can fix this, he said. That line. The universal last attempt. You couldn't fix honesty when it was free, I replied quietly. You only want to fix consequences. That shut him down. Because deep down, he knew it was true. I didn't hate him. That's the surprising part. I just saw him clearly now. And clarity removes illusion. I'm filing for divorce, I said calmly. The word hung in the air. Divorce. After 42 years. It didn't feel dramatic. Felt overdue. He sat down on the edge of the bed. You're throwing everything away. I almost smiled. No. I'm choosing not to throw myself away. There's a difference. He didn't beg. Didn't argue. Didn't fight. Because there was nothing left to defend. The pregnancy lie exposed the cracks. The other women shattered the illusion. And once trust fractures that deeply, you don't glue it. You acknowledge it. Over the next few weeks, everything moved quietly. Lawyers, paperwork, division of assets, retirement accounts. Ironically, the Florida condo money came back into discussion. Not as a dream, as an asset. Megan never contacted him again. She sent me one final message. "I'm sorry for my part in this." I replied with 2 words. "Take care." No bitterness, no friendship, just closure. Daniel moved into a smaller apartment downtown. I stayed in the house. First it felt strange. Too quiet. Too still. But then something shifted. The silence didn't feel empty. Felt peaceful. People always assume divorce at this age is tragic. But sometimes it's not tragedy. It's alignment. When you stop forcing something that stopped working long ago. A few months later, I redecorated the bedroom. New paint. New bedding. New energy. Not because I was replacing him, but because I was reclaiming space. Friends asked if I was lonely. Sometimes. But loneliness inside a dishonest marriage is heavier than solitude outside of it. And I chose lighter. The most unexpected part. Daniel tried to reach out 6 months later. Not romantically. Not dramatically. Just a text. "Hope you're doing okay." I looked at it for a long time. Then I replied, "I am." And I meant it. Because here's what I learned. He didn't leave me pregnant. He didn't destroy my life. He didn't steal my future. He revealed reality. And reality, no matter how ugly, is a gift. At 67, I wasn't starting over. I was starting honest. And that's something no affair, no lie, and no midlife fantasy can take away. The shower still works perfectly. Funny how the smallest repairs last the longest. Then,